Good evening. It is Monday, May 14th, 2018. We will begin our meeting tonight with our annual meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. First on our agenda is the roll call.
Commissioner Abbott?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Foster?
Here.
Commissioner Pelleton?
Here.
Commissioner Olvani?
Here.
Commissioner Shelley?
Here.
Commissioner Wolf?
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. The first on the agenda is the election of officers. I will turn this over to Mr. Wilson.
All right. At this time, I will entertain nominations for the office of President.
I will move that Amy Wolf be nominated.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for the office of President? Seeing none, I move that the nominations are closed and that Amy Wolf be unanimously elected to the office of President. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, and the meeting is yours.
Thank you. At this point, I will entertain nominations for the office of Vice President.
I move to nominate Shelley to the role of Vice President.
And I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for the office? Hearing none, I move that the nominations be closed and that Shelley be unanimously elected to the office of Vice President. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Shelley, you have been elected the Vice President of the Park Board. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll be moving on to the appointment of officers and directors. I move to approve the appointment of Steve Wilson for the office of Secretary.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, you're Secretary.
Appreciate it.
I move to approve the appointment of Libby Baker for the office of Assistant Secretary.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Libby, you're Assistant. I move to approve the appointment of Steve Wilson for the office of Executive Director.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
I move to approve the appointment of Steve Holloway for the office of Treasurer.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we are on to the appointment of Freedom of Information Act officers. I move to approve the appointments of Steve Wilson and Libby Baker as Freedom of Information Act officers.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we're on to the appointment of the Open Meetings Act designees. I move to approve the appointments of Steve Wilson and Libby Baker as Open Meetings Act designees.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Appointment of the Park District Legal Counsel. I move to approve the appointment of Tressler, LLP, as the Wilmette Park District Legal Counsel.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The approval of the revised 2018 board meeting schedule. I move to approve the revised 2018 board meeting schedule, which is attached to this.
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye. And finally, I move to adjourn to the 2018 annual board meeting.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. This concludes the annual meeting of the 2018 annual meeting of Board of Park Commissioners. We will now move on to our regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. I don't believe we have to do a roll call vote again, since we already did that. So the first on our agenda will be the approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
I move to approve the minutes for the April 9th, 2018 regular board meeting.
I'll second those. That is.
Are there any comments or corrections to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Olvani?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Great, thank you. Moving on, communications and correspondence. I don't believe there were any in the packet. Did any commissioners have any communications or correspondence they would like to share?
I received a number of communications regarding the bird habitat and
Yes.
and other items, but none of that made it into the packet. I mean, I received at least 6.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if those were going to the
More than 6,
lakefront
yeah.
meeting or lakefront committee
That was my intent, was to.
to have that,
Put 'em there, yeah.
so it could be discussed at the lakefront
Okay.
committee. Okay. Any other communications or correspondence? All right, next we'll move on to recognition of visitors. Is there anyone that would like to address us? Oh, I think we'll start from the front and go back, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sherry Medwin, 848 Park Avenue. I came before you about 4 months ago in February to request that a plaque be put up for Barbara Rothrock at the Center Fitness Club. And at that time, it was suggested that this should be handled by the Financial Planning and Policy Committee. So I have been regularly attending those meetings. And the request has moved from a concept of a plaque that would be up in perpetuity to a plaque that could be up for just 5 years, or in increments 5, 10, 15 years with different monetary amounts attached to each. If you recall from the February meeting, my original intent was to honor Barbara's contribution to the Center Fitness Club. She was a member there for 15, 20 years. She was really one of the lights of the community. She brought people together. She was an exemplar of strength and optimism and an ambassador of goodwill. And so we thought it only fitting to try to honor that memory with a plaque. Kathy Bingham has been fabulous in helping to design it. And we decided, I think, on a 4x8? Yeah, a 4x8 bronze plaque, and that was actually a step down. My original proposal was to rename Fitness Studio A for Barbara, and I understand that that really would not be in the best interest of the fitness club, so a plaque underneath the Fitness Studio A sign we decided would be appropriate. I am, as I've told them before, indebted to those on the Financial Planning and Policy Committee for working through this issue very thoughtfully and diligently, as they also revised their memorial naming policy going forward.
I admire your fortitude as
Thank
well.
you so much.
Sitting through all of those meetings.
Thank you. We're glad it all worked out.
I have learned a lot about my community.
Thank you so much. Ms. Drucker?
Good evening. I'm Beth Drucker, and I'm representing all of the board and the members of Go Greenville Met. I want to thank you, first of all, for all the work that you do to protect our natural resources here in Wilmette and to connect people to nature through your programming and through your beautiful parks. I want to thank you for being such incredible partners to our organization since we began. Some of you may not know that our very first environmental fair in 2007 took place at the Community Recreation Center. So what we would like to do is to offer you a token of our appreciation for all of the things that you have done for Go Green Wilmette and for members of the community. This is Therese Bach-Hayek. She is a Wilmette resident and a professional photographer. She has been going to Gilson Park almost daily for 20 years. In all the weather, she made a promise to her dog, who lived for 13 and a half years, that she would take the dog there every day. This is one of our favorite shots that she's taken, because it just represents that beautiful lakefront that makes Wilmette such a special place that you work so hard to protect. And interestingly, this was what we took the logo of Go Greenville Met from. We went to a graphic designer and said, can you make a graphic version of that? And so our logo is from this photo. So we thought it would be a great way to give you a token of our appreciation and ask that this be hung in the Lakeview Center at Gilson Park, so that people who walk in can really see firsthand what we have to offer. I just also wanted to say you have helped us for all of our environmental fairs, including offering your parking lot these last several years for our fair. You help us with our native plant sale, with our habitat restoration work at Gilson Park, with the nature programming that you've worked so hard on, our bird walks through your parks, and our tree walks. So for all those reasons, we want to leave you with a little bit of a thanks. So Teresa's work, she has a Facebook page, teresebachkayak.com, and she also has a weekly glimpse of nature. Almost all of her photographs are taken from Gilson Park, and it's just stunning. So we hope that you appreciate this, and we will save you the trouble, and we will deliver this to Lakeview Center tomorrow. Shall we hand it over to Holly Specht?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Beautiful. She's lovely. Thank you.
I'd like to see a day like that.
I know. We need some weather like that soon.
When was that? Gorgeous pictures.
It's a gorgeous picture.
What's her last? Beautiful.
Bachkayak.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Yep, Mr. Crystal?
Oh, that's so not how I wrote it.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
250 Vista Court. The first topic that I would like to address that you should be aware is yesterday the sailing season has started slowly, and yesterday I literally had to run on the south side of the beach and stop two gators that had two young adults and teenagers on them just zooming on the beach towards the north side. We had this problem for many years, and I've talked to the lakefront manager at least in 3 separate seasons, and there is no real reason besides carrying heavy loads and for young adults that barely have experience driving gators on the sand. So to make the long story short, I'm asking you to basically ban all gator usage by the staff unless it's carrying heavy load. I can show you a picture that one kid is sitting on the area where you're carrying the load instead of, 2 people in the front. There are 2 seats. Another one was just sitting. It's dangerous. They're driving really close to patrons. It's creating noise and pollution hazard. It's costing us needless money, and it's only 2 minutes walk. There is really no reason. So that's with that, and I would appreciate your help. I think it opens us to first for serious injuries to people, which is obviously unacceptable, and potential lawsuits. So thank you. And now I would like to address the new parking lot design, and it's on the board. The first thing that I would like to address are the 4 handicap parking spots. As you can see, they're smack in the middle of traffic. The redesign of the parking lot, the premise of it was that we're going to have a better traffic flow. And this is completely contrary to what's going to happen. Even if you had, regular people, or young people, I should say, park there, it's not a good idea, to say the least. But these are handicapped people, so it will take them even longer. Meanwhile, the traffic is going to have to stop on both sides. If you'll see at the bottom, the black rectangle, these are, of course, representing cars, it's actually parked on the sidewalk. So that will also interrupt the pedestrian. It's just not a good place to put those. And I want to be clear, I'm completely for handicap spots for the for Wallace Bowl. So I think it's necessary. I just think that's the wrong way to go about it. Now, if we take, this is the current one. If we had the plan that was the 368 plan, the only difference between this plan and the 368 plan would be this square. So as you can see, most of the parking lot is going to be exactly the same. And I would encourage you to ask Mr. Tenucci to complete this one, and then for you to evaluate it side by side and see which one makes more sense. With this one, you will have no traffic problems that are, from the handicap spots. The traffic will go through just as it is right now. There are going to be more parking spots. I want you to take into consideration, in the last 5 years, you added 100 SUP spots. You created an SUP beach, and you added more SUP, 35 more SUP spots on the south side. There were more, the traffic for the sailing beach also increased. The number of people are using it. Obviously, the new facility, which is going to be awesome, is going to create more traffic. So I believe that we need to maximize the spots on the existing parking lot. Also, the tree. The new, I was surprised to see that the new plan is calling for reduction of about 15 trees. And I believe this plan can have more, and I would encourage you to explore it. There are other benefits, like parking all the way in the back in the shade. You let the village use the west parking lot right now to put stuff in the winter, and it's completely separate. People can wait for other people over there without interfering with the parking lot. I think this should be explored because there are many benefits for the future. Again, I'm looking only for the benefit of the community. If just to emphasize this point, there is going to be a new road from the sailing beach to the parking lot. It's going to be paved on sand. Right now there is, and I completely support it. I even sent Commissioner Peloton an email about it. So I never thought that I would, support paving on precious sand, but I am, because it's the right thing for the community. It will even increase the likelihood that we're going to have some, theft at the sailing beach, because it's going to be closer to the road. But even with it, I support it. So that's all with that, and whoever needs to take this one, please do that. The last issue that I would like to address is the, thank you, the bathroom for the sailing beach. I've talked to Ms. Bingham, and we explored renting the facilities, and it was determined that it would be too expensive, and it doesn't make sense. So because you're planning the whole, a big construction project, it would be, and we need literally two small, I wouldn't even call it buildings, that would fit right here, with three bathroom stalls. And it will be, most likely would be cheaper to do it and to explore the cost when we do it in adjacent to the larger project. It doesn't have to be part of it, but just to explore, it makes sense. And if you determine that the trailer, we're looking for very simple, we're not looking for anything fancy. It doesn't have to have the boards and all that stuff. Simple, that's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Okay, we will be moving along. Next on our agenda is the approval of the voucher list.
All right, I move to approve the voucher list in the amount of $1,343,942.98, a copy of which is to be attached to and become a permanent part of the minutes of this meeting.
I'll second.
Are there any questions or comments regarding the voucher list? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletin?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Voucher list is approved.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. The bulk of my report is really focused on the agenda items ahead of us. So under financial planning, we're going to work through the memorial policy that we just heard Ms. Medwin speak about during recognition of visitors. It's been through multiple versions, and in your packet you have a redlined copy. The reason it's redlined was coming out of the last Financial Planning Committee meeting. There were still some agreed-upon changes that didn't go back to that committee, and we'd been doing redline versions all the way through so everyone could see the changes as we went. So I thought we should keep it the same and bring you a redline version here tonight. Also, under new business, we have a couple items. We have a seal coating bid that Superintendent Ulrich administered, and we had 3 companies respond, and in your packet you have a memo and a bid recommendation sheet. As you'll recall, last year when we did this bid, because of the requirement that was passed by the village to not use coal tar sealants, we had no bidders last year. So Jerry sought out 19 different companies, and 3 submitted bids for that. And then also under new business, we have kind of our standard surplus property ordinance. This is the 3 vehicles we bought in the capital budget this year that replace vehicles that were originally purchased in 2008 and are used year-round as well as in snow plowing of the parking lots of the different facilities. So that is under new business. And then lastly, under new business, we have a sewer that is on the east side of town that runs underneath Canal Shores and connects to the MWRD system that was first installed in 1993. That easement is expiring now, and the village and the MWRD have come to terms on extending that easement, but part of our terms with the MWRD for the land that is Canal Shores, since we lease it from them, is any sort of easement like this must be approved by us, so we must provide consent, and that's why it's on the agenda tonight, even though we are not a party to the easement. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson? All right, hearing none, we will move along to committee reports. And first up is Lakefront Committee.
All right. The Lakefront Committee, Andy Tanucci came back after 2 months and presented us with further details on the plan. And there were several different things that we hadn't yet seen, the first of which was lighting. He presented a couple of different options for lighting the parking lot area, and the committee members asked him to pursue the one which had fewer light poles, fewer fixtures, but taller. And so we'll look forward to finding out more about that. The other thing is that he has been working with staff, and there was a brand new thing that the committee hadn't seen, which was a new path connecting the existing staircase at the north end of Gilson, parallel to Lake Avenue, which would then lead across the traffic lane and along the north end of the parking lot to essentially the Sailing Beach area. And there were handicap spots. The handicap spots that Mr. Crystal discussed earlier were new to the committee as well. We had talked about the possibility of putting some, because there are some currently near the Wallace Bowl, near that location. And we did discuss during the meeting the fact that it's less than ideal to have people backing into the main traffic lane going through the parking lot. The biggest thing was the discussion about the trees. It has been the biggest thing for, it seems like, months. And he gave us a couple of options. He had done a tree survey finally and figured out that the number of trees that would have to be removed ran into, I think it was 64. I didn't have that number written down, but he said if we add the 32 trees that the village requires in the parking lot, and then add, he had a range of additional trees beyond that. To make a long story short, we decided that we would go with the maximum number that he was presenting, which would still result in, as Mr. Crystal had pointed out, a net loss of 15 trees to the park. And the placement of those trees, the type of those trees is still yet to be determined. He did give us, and he's presented this many times now, a couple of slides of the kinds of trees that we might be selecting from, the kinds of shrubs we might be selecting from, grasses, that sort of thing. And so the plan is being refined further and further. Where the trees go, how high they are, what kind of trees they are, that sort of thing, is still to be nailed down. But I think that we have a general sense of how many trees, at least, we're aiming for. That is, it will be substantially different because we're not replacing larger mature trees with large mature trees. We're going to be replacing them with smaller, younger trees, but they will grow. There were some questions from the committee about the playground location. We haven't gotten to that yet, was the response on that. This is from Mr. Abbott, as well as repaving Lake Avenue, the Lake Avenue entrance. And that we were reminded that the village the water department is beginning a project this fall, which they expect to take 2 years, which will tear up that road even further than it is already. So hopefully after the 2 years, they will repave that thing and we will have a pleasant, smooth entrance into the park. But until then, not so much so. I asked, Commissioner Anderson reminded us that about the budget and that we need to be mindful of it, and that if we exceed the projected budget, that we'll have to do without the kitchen equipment. So we're going to be looking for an update based on the plan as we understand it to this point from WB Olson at our next meeting. But we haven't had anything. We haven't had any real update on that for quite a while now, 3-4 months, I would say. I also asked about schedule. I'm very concerned about the schedule for this thing because it's tighter. Mr. Snucci assured us that we were still on schedule and that all was well. Holly and Katie are doing their thing down at the lakefront and doing a good job. I don't have details on their report. And as for Jerry, he talked about the play lot, which unfortunately we're still waiting for the contractor. I know we had initially hoped that in May we would be able to get this rubber surface down. Keep your fingers crossed for warm and dry weather, because that was one that I didn't realize was that we also needed dry, and we'll get it down. But lots of residents who are interested in that, and as you guys all have received messages from the birding community in support of the existing bird habitat and whatever other efforts we can do to facilitate birds in the park. And that's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Lakefront Committee?
Yeah, I'd love to get an update on what's going on at Langdon.
In that case, I'm going to ask Ms. Bingham to.
Thank you. We have, Jerry has made arrangements with the contractor to excavate the area. That's maybe too strong of a word, but to level the area where we had
to grade it.
Cliffs. to grade it. Thank you, to be technical. And so they were actually in today. I went down there this afternoon to look at it, and I was astounded at the difference between what we looked at last week and what it looked like today. It's perfect today to do what we need to do. So we hope that we don't have any major storms that will change that.
So this is to create a ramp, a grade,
Create safe passage for both patrons as well as the lifeguards, police and fire, who actually met with us. Steve was down there, and Jerry and I and Holly and Katie with police and fire to look at what we had to work with and what would be the best way for them to safely access it in an emergency situation. So
to be clear, you had done that prior to our last Lakefront Committee meeting.
Yes.
Now the grading has been completed.
Correct.
And does that mean that the fencing is coming down? The snow
once
fence?
they complete it, because now Jerry's guys will go in and hand level some of the areas. It was done with a large piece of equipment, and now they're going to go in and do some work by hand. And then once that's finished, then the fencing will be, to where it leads you into the park. Right now, the fencing that you may have seen last week that was in the road, that's gone, but you still can't get down to the water yet. So that, Jerry, estimate as to when you think that'll happen?
We're going to take the silt fence that we got guarding the beach from anybody coming off, and then we're going to move it on top of the bluff that's there, actually the dune, so people will have access down the road to the south to get in there, but they won't be able to fall off the edge because it's still about a 10, 13-foot drop in some places. So right when you come down the road, you'll just steer everybody to the right, and then they will come back to the left. But it's probably a good 75-foot ramp that goes down. It's about 10, 15 feet wide. So if we don't get any storms.
So are you getting the snow fence that's behind the
Split
post
rail?
and rail, the split rail fence? What about that one?
We'll take that down. If people are going to climb over it, we're giving them access, so we should be able to take that down and just run the snow fence where that shorter round rail fence is, right at the bottom of the thing, and then curve that down so no one can just go off the edge.
So the general idea is going to be that patrons are going to access, once you start going down, patrons are going to access to the left, where it's a smoother.
No, to the right.
To the right.
They
To the left.
To the south.
They have graded where there was a big drop off,
Yeah.
right? They have now graded a new ramp going to the right.
He did
And
a
the
great
thought
job.
was we were going to do it once, right?
Yes.
Right.
And to see if it holds, and this should allow, access to the beach as well as open up the swimming beach come Memorial Day. But if it changes with, more rising water or storms, I don't think, we thought we'd try it once, but we won't
Right, well,
continue to try to,
We'll have to move the fence back and
yeah,
kind of keep
and the
the
beach
people off
may
the
have
beach
to be
again.
closed.
What's the issue with, because it's the bluff gets lower as you go further to the north, right? The cliff,
Correct.
if you will.
Right.
So if you walk through what used to be shrubbery in order to get down there, right, that's a pretty safe passage.
Right,
What's
but-
the issue with doing that?
There was a lot of rocks in there from the revetment wall that were sticking up that you couldn't make a very nice
Grade
wide
over.
path, and it would take you all the way to the north end of the beach before
That's
it
what
was
I mean, all the way to the
to
north.
safe.
And John-
But the swimming is towards the shed.
Correct.
So we're
So
trying to keep it closer
the
to-
fire department actually advised against that path to the north because it would take you away from where they would have to respond to someone in our sailing beach because of all the impediments in the water towards the north and towards the condos. We set up our swimming beach to the south, and that's why they wanted the route as direct as possible.
Okay.
It looks great now, and if we don't get a lot of, huge storms that bring us a lot of, significant wave action, I mean, that took all summer or all winter for it to get to where it was. So we are hopeful that with the work that has been done already and the work his guys will do, we'll be in really good shape for Memorial Day.
And they were able to move those two rocks that had fallen way out.
Yeah.
They got them closer to shore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Any other questions for the Lakefront Committee? Okay, we will be moving along to facilities operations.
The Facilities Committee met tonight before the meeting. We had a pretty quick meeting. At the pool's getting prepped for opening. The diving pool and the lap pools are full, and the activity pool is next to get filled. We have lifeguard training coming up. Both beach lifeguards and the pool lifeguards will be getting training at the pool. The pool lifeguards are training May 21st through 25th, and we continue to hire at the pool. And early bird rates for passes can be purchased until midnight tonight. So you have a few hours left to get a reduced rate. At the ice rink, the ice show is this weekend. The set has been installed. We have 189 skaters and 3 shows this weekend, Friday at 7, Saturday at 4:30 p.m., and Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Tennis had their lottery on April 28th, and we sold 124 90-minute slots. They also held the first annual Centennial Classic Pro-Am on May 5th with a full field, and it was a huge success, and I called it an annual event because we will be having it again. They were really excited about how that went. And then in paddle, spring programming is wrapping up at the end of this month. But most exciting, if you've driven by on Lake Avenue, you see the new paddle courts. There's 2 new paddle courts. They're constructed. We just need to install the gas and electric, which should be done over the next 2 months. And then we also just recently heard that we were awarded a $5,000 grant from the APTA toward the construction of the paddle courts.
Hey.
So that was good news.
Yeah.
And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the Facilities Committee? Hearing none, we'll move on to Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec met on April 16th. 2 major issues that this committee's been working on. Langdon, there was a community meeting, Langdon Playground. So the Langdon Playground, there was a community meeting April 11th in the park, and those comments have been passed on, and we're awaiting some, the program, the upshot of that, and some initial conceptual designs. K Nature Center was discussed. Several residents did attend the meeting and spoke. We hope to have some recommendations, well, we hope next month, but soon, to wrap up the landscaping initiatives planning for K Nature Center. Park District is still hiring, and as Commissioner Foster said, so check the website, and that wraps up my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the Parks and Recreation Committee? None. We will move on to the Golf Operations Committee.
Okay, so golf, I'm going to combine 2 reports. We had a meeting in April and a meeting in May. So this is going to be a summary of both of those meetings. The golf course is in very good condition thus far this season, despite having the coldest month of April in 137 years. The course is in pretty good shape. And very good shape, in fact. And we've actually have more rounds that have been played despite those cold temperatures this year than last year. On top of that, one of the things that we're keeping a close eye on this year is trying to get a better handle on revenue per round played. And that actually has increased to $27.87 per round played versus $23.50 per round played thus far. As far as implementation of the business plan that the staff put together, a couple of interesting points that I want the committee to know about is that, first of all, our permanent tea time initiative was met with a pretty strong and good result. We sold twice as many as we budgeted of permanent tea times. That's a good outcome. Also, we've done a lot more e-marketing, and as a result of the e-marketing, we're trying to get a better handle on who our customers are, other than the members. And although it's a very small sample set, i.e., who has been our customers that have purchased tea times online thus far this season, the numbers, or the zip codes, I should say, are panning out as expected by our staff. Interestingly, the top 5 zip codes to purchase tee times, number 1 was Wilmette, then followed by Lincoln Park, Glenview, Lakeview, and Wicker Park. So we are getting customers from the north side of the city, which is what we anticipated, and we're hoping that will continue, and the trends will stay along the same lines as we are. With regard to some of our programming, we're also off to a pretty good start there. Our junior golf program has 48 participants in it thus far. What they're going to do this year is kind of create a house league kind of concept to it, where once they get some instructions and get out on the course, then they're going to divide them up into 4 teams of equal abilities and have them play against each other, and then the top 10 will start to go on the road and be the so-called travel team. Our family golf and our ladies Thursday night programs also are off to a good start too. Those were quote unquote sold out, so that's a good thing too. And then lastly, if you haven't seen yet, along Lake Avenue, a la carte, the former storefront on Green Bay Road, they've now moved into the kitchen at the golf course. The food, I got a third-party opinion on the food. It was told it was very, very good. And actually on Easter Sunday, they had, I believe, 400 people have Easter Sunday brunch. I would imagine that Mother's Day was another strong success as well, but that was obviously after our meeting. So that is an overview of what's gone on at the golf course over the past couple months.
Thank you. Any questions for the Golf Committee? Hearing none, we will move on to Financial Planning and Policy Committee.
Okay, the Financial Planning and Policy Committee met twice in April, on the 23rd and then again on the 30th. The major topic at both meetings was the memorial policy, which we wanted to finish and get in front of the board tonight. We spent time discussing memorials as distinct from the naming rights, for which there's an existing policy already. And we spent a lot of time on the detail, the types of and locations for the memorials that should be considered, the standards for the plaques, the lifespan and renewal options for the memorial, what to do with existing memorials, maintenance and administrative obligations, and donation costs to attach to each category of memorial. So a lot of detail in there. A few underlying assumptions behind the policy. All the memorial items are to fit in as part of an overall design plan for that particular location. So there's consistency in each setting. The funds paid for the memorial are donations. So, when you look at the dollar amounts, they're not intended to be the actual cost of the item that we're putting in. There's a premium on top of that. And the policy is pretty comprehensive, so not everybody's going to agree on every piece of the policy that's out there. The intent is that nothing is set in stone in this thing. It's sort of a living document. We would expect this board or future boards to make changes to it as we go along the way. Our desire is to have the policy approved tonight so that Sherry and the other supporters of Barbara's memorial can move forward and be the first group to take advantage of the opportunities presented with this policy. And Sherry's been great coming to all the meetings and really even helping us with our wording. We discussed the entertainment expense policy as well, with further discussions around alcohol and retiree gifts. We will be reviewing an updated draft of the policy at our next meeting, and we'll be bringing that to the board probably at the July board meeting, I'm going to guess. We've started addressing the public comments policy as new business, and we would hope to finalize at our next committee meeting and again bring that to the board in July. And lastly, near and dear to my heart, we received the verbal update on the comprehensive annual financial report, affectionately referred to as CAFR by those with a financial mindset like me, and we expect to have that report draft for the committee review by the end of this month.
That's it.
Any questions for the Financial Planning and Policy Committee?
We have a motion.
Yeah. Do
Okay.
you have a motion?
Having none, I would move to approve the memorial policy as recommended by the Financial Planning and Policy Committee.
I'll second that.
Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletin?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Policy is approved.
Thank you very much. Yay!
We don't get applause off and shit.
Thank you for coming, and you're welcome. Next up is our unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business before the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. First on our agenda is the approval of a seal coating bid.
I'm going to move to approve the bid from Mall Paving, Naperville, Illinois, at a cost of $38,970 for seal coating the parking lots at Centennial and the Community Recreation Center.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And this is something that we do every few years to maintain our parking lots. It's just maintenance for our
Standard maintenance.
standard maintenance. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletin?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Bid is approved.
Thank you. Next, under new business, we have the approval of ordinance 2018-0-4, authorizing the trade-in or sale of surplus property.
I will move to approve ordinance 2018-0-4, an ordinance authorizing and providing for the sale of surplus property.
I'll second.
Again, this is standard practice of something that we do when we have equipment that gets older. We try to get money for it, so we go out and sell it or trade it in to offset costs of new equipment. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletin?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Ordinance is approved.
Thank you. And last, under new business, we have consent for the Village of Wilmette Greenleaf Relief Sewer easement.
Yes, and I move to authorize consent to an easement between the Village of Wilmette and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, otherwise known as MWRD.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Again, this is something that I believe it was 20 years ago. 25 years ago, that the board approved to give authorization for the MWRD, the village, to go on MWRD property that is leased to us, that we lease to Canal Shores, so that they can get sewer relief to the Greenleaf area.
The only thing that could happen is if they needed to dig it up to repair it, and that hasn't happened in 25 years. And it does not impact any of our operations.
It does not. So, any other questions or comments?
Steve, any comments from the lawyers as you went through this that of any interest at all?
No. Some questions were asked about our working relationship with the village in case they needed to get out there, what notification requirements, and I assured them we have a wonderful working relationship and we didn't have to over-lawyer this process.
Good.
And this has nothing to do with the Keefe property down closer to Isabella?
No.
I don't believe it goes through that area.
Question or a comment?
Question.
No.
No.
It's further north. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovani?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletin?
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Consent is authorized.
Are there any other new business items to be discussed?
Actually, I probably should have asked this during the unfinished business section, but since our last meeting, the village approved the stormwater management plan, or came up with a plan that obviously has a significant impact to us. Could we get some discussion about where we are and what we're going to do?
Steve and I will be meeting with Tim Frenzer and Bob Belinsky on Friday morning just to talk about the procedure of that. We will not be discussing the plan itself or making any discussion or making any decisions or anything. We're just going to talk about how we're going to work together intergovernmentally to move the project forward. So once we do that, we will figure out what the next steps will be as far as them meeting with us, presenting to us which committees, and that kind of thing. So it's just more talking about logistics.
Sure. They made a big point about now moving quickly. Yes, I know.
Correct.
And as I said, they've had 5 years and we've had 0. But yes, I understand.
So I'm sure it'll be a very good discussion. So. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other new business? Hearing none, I move to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Question mark.
Total info, news,